This is Brother John. I'd like to take a few moments of your time and discuss a very important topic pertaining to the end of days and the second coming of Jesus Christ. The topic is Great Tribulation. In the Western world, most prophecy teachers and theologians and Bible scholars and even pastors teach that the church will not be here for Great Tribulation. They teach the church will be raptured before Great Tribulation starts, but that's not biblical. The truth is, they are conflating the word tribulation with the word wrath. They're mixing and matching those two words as if they mean the same thing. In other words, they're saying great tribulation is the wrath of God, but it is not. A simple word study reveals that great tribulation is a great persecution of the church. It's pressure, persecution, it is affliction. It is the attack of the enemy and the people that are against God on God's people. That's what great tribulation is. The wrath of God is something totally different. The wrath of God is the righteous response from God against those who persecuted his church and rejected the gospel message of the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ, the Son of God. Tribulation and wrath are not the same thing. They are not. The church of God will be here through great tribulation and will overcome the Antichrist, the devil, and those who serve him. In fact, in the book of Matthew, chapter 24, Jesus says, immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun shall be darkened and the moon shall not give its light. And a couple verses later, he says, he shall send his angels and gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. That is the rapture of the church. And it happens immediately after the tribulation of those days. How can sophisticated scholars and theologians and pastors and people that spend and dedicate countless hours studying the Word make such a critical, fundamental error? Well, it has to do with the foundation that you build. If you build on a flawed foundation, then you're going to get a flawed structure. And I believe many of these people are well meaning, but they've built their end time philosophy or end time doctrine on a flawed foundation. Many of them will point back to the 70th week of Daniel as the foundation of their doctrine, saying that Jesus entered into Jerusalem on a donkey triumphantly a few days before he was crucified. And they'll say that that is the fulfillment of the prophecy Gabriel the angel gave to Daniel in chapter 9, verses 24 through 27 of the book of Daniel. But the truth is, that is not the fulfillment of that prophecy. And in fact, the fulfillment of that very prophecy happened 3.5 years earlier when Jesus was baptized by John the Baptist. After being baptized, the Holy Spirit drove Jesus into the wilderness where he spent 40 days fasting. And after he fasted, he gathered his disciples. He went into the temple and he picked up the scroll and he read from Isaiah chapter 61 about the coming of the Messiah. And then he rolled the scroll back up, gave it to the attendant, and made a declaration. Jesus said, today, in your hearing, these scriptures are fulfilled. What was he talking about? He was talking about all of the scriptures pertaining to the coming of the Messiah. The Messiah did not come officially 3.5 years later when Jesus went into Jerusalem a few days before his crucifixion. The Messiah came when Jesus said, today, in your hearing, these scriptures are fulfilled. What scriptures? All scriptures concerning the coming of the Messiah. It happened at the beginning of his ministry. 3.5 years later, Jesus was crucified. If you want to hear more about how we can biblically prove that great tribulation and the wrath of God are not the same, and the church will be here during great tribulation, but we are not appointed to wrath, Get my book, Final Word of the Lord. I dedicate a few chapters explaining this concept and laying it out very easily understood from a biblical perspective with Bible verses to back up the concept. You can get this book on Amazon, Walmart.com, Barnes & Nobles, and any fine online bookstore. God bless you.